Hello everyone, Nicole Bowman here, and I am back with another audio video. And I want to thank you guys so much for taking a moment to stop by my channel and to share your light with me. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about reading candles. But before we get into that, I want to explain this series and what it's all about. A Magical Life is all about charting my progress and my life as a magical practitioner. But not only am I sharing my personal experiences, I'm sharing them in hopes that you will be able to walk your path as a magical practitioner. So I'm going to be sharing tips and tools and information. I'm going to be sharing what worked for me. We're going to be looking at the pitfalls and everything in between. But it's so important to know that your path is your path, your walk is your walk, and you have to walk it your way. So take the information here that resonates with you. Take the information here that you can really integrate into your life. And if there's something that you can't integrate, you don't have to apply it. But just remember, this is your path. So walk your way. With that being said, I want to go into our first lesson. The first lesson is how to read candles. And I want to talk a little bit about candles and the background behind them. I'm going to talk about why I use them and why I think that they're a wonderful aspect of a spiritual and magical practice. You know, candles in their simplest form represent the spirit of fire. You know, they represent change, they represent baptism, they represent transformation. And so whenever you're trying to let go of something, whenever you're trying to reach a deeper level in your life, whenever you're trying to release, whenever you're trying to manifest, the spirit of fire, which is transformative, which is powerful, which is healing, can really be helpful with that. So that's one of the reasons that I use candles. That's one of the reasons that I have a candle ministry where I help clients to reach their goals and reach their dreams and do that with the spirit of fire. And I think the important thing to understand is that every living thing on our planet has a spirit. All the elements have a spirit. Fire has a spirit, water has a spirit, earth has a spirit, air has a spirit, everything has a spirit. So with that being said, I'm going to look at our first photo and share a little background about that and then get into reading the candle itself. So a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure many of you are aware of this by now, there was unfortunately a massacre in Orlando where a number of people lost their lives tragically. And it may not have even been a couple weeks ago. It may have been a week ago at this point. But after this happened, I was feeling a real pull from spirit to do a candle for the souls who had passed away to help them cross over, but also to rise in power. And, you know, and this thought came to me because there was a wonderful magical practitioner named Dr. E of Dr. E Products. And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But one of the things that he always said is, we don't rest in peace. We rise in power. We don't rest in peace. We rise in power. And Dr. E was talking about the LGBT community. He himself was an openly gay male. He had a partner. He had a wonderful practice that was flourishing and thriving. And whenever a member of the LGBT community passed away, it was always about them rising in power. It was always about them taking their place among the ancestors. It was always around them letting go of any pain or any fear or anything that would hold them back and really moving into that light and shining. And so I was definitely led to do a candle that would encompass that. And, you know, it's funny because I typically don't use 7-day candles in my candle ministry. And the reason behind that is because I travel a lot. So oftentimes I will use a tea light candle or I'll use a day candle because they're just easier to dispose of for me and they're just easier to deal with, you know. But a few weeks ago, prior to the shootings, I just got a feeling in a sense that I needed to get a 7-day candle. And I was led to get a 7-day candle in honor of Elegua. And for those of you who are not familiar with Elegua, in Lukumi, he is the spirit of the crossroads. In Voodoo, he is Papa Legba, also the spirit of the crossroads. And in Catholicism, he is Saint Peter, who has the keys to heaven. So he represents the place where two roads meet. He represents the doorway to perception. He represents crossing between this world and the next. He represents the doorway to new opportunities. And he represents doors closing when things no longer serve you. And so it felt very, very fitting that I would do a candle in honor of Eligua and in honor of these souls that crossed over, because that really is what he represents and that really is his job and his blessing. So I got the candle and I was very, very excited about that. And, you know, I sat down to do the work. And the picture you're seeing, the first picture, is from my first day of doing this candle work. And I was super excited because the candle was burning very, very bright. And that is always an excellent sign. In any type of candle work you're doing, whatever the focus, whatever the intention is, whether it's money, whether it's love, whether it's letting go of things that no longer serve you, when that candle flame is burning bright, that means that your prayers are being answered. That means that the spirit world hears you, and that means that you are reaching your goal. So bright flame is always a great sign. So then I was looking at the candle for some other signs as well. And if you'll notice, if we just look just to the right of the candle, you'll see a purple orb that seems to be floating out of the candle. Now, initially when I was looking around, I thought that part of this might be to do with the flash. And there are some qualities here on this particular photo that I do think are to do with the flash. Well, when I look at this round orb specifically, what I felt about it and what I received psychically is that that was actually a representation that the souls were indeed crossing over. That round orb represents the spirits. That round orb represents them rising in power and going to the light and connecting with their ancestors and moving on. So, you know, that little pink or purple orb that you see, Spirit was saying that that represents them. It represents the souls crossing over, and it also represents the circle of protection and the orb of protection that the highly evolved angelic beings have placed around them so they can cross over safely. So super excited. So I'm going to go to another photo because I like to take photos from different angles. Taking them from different angles gives me an idea of the work and how successful it is and how it's working. And as you can see in this particular candle, partially due to the angle that the photo was taken from, but you know, this is also a sign in the candle. You can see that the flame seems to be reaching outward. You know, they seem to be reaching outward a little bit. And this isn't really a coincidence. You know, when a flame looks like this, it almost looks like a cross, if you can see, and or a star, and it's reaching out on all sides. That was basically a sign that all of these souls, you know, they're rising up, they're crossing over, they're getting ready to rise in power. They're letting go. They're releasing their bodies, they're releasing their attachments, and they're getting ready to be free. So I'm going to move on to the next photo here. And as you can see, I took it from another angle just to see what was going on and see the activity. And right here, the flame changes and it begins to shoot up, almost as if we're reaching towards the heavens. And that's an excellent sign, because what that also means is that those souls are reaching up. They're not lingering. They're not being attached to their earthly possessions or earthly energy, but they really are taking their place in the spirit world. Now, before we leave this page, I want to talk a little bit about what you may notice here in the picture. There's a number of things in the picture, but there's only one other thing that's really important, so I'm going to point that out. You may see a cup right next to the candle. Now, this cup doesn't have anything in it but water. And the reason why I put water in a cup when I'm doing crossing over work is because I find that it helps to talk to the water, to program the water, and to tell the water that its job is to absorb harmful energy. So anything that is harmful or could prevent the work from being successful, I say to the water, you are to absorb that so that the souls may cross over, so that they may heal, and so they may be at peace. And the water listens. You know, and it's just about talking to it. It's just about holding the cup in your hand. It's just about telling the water what it's supposed to do and setting it by the candle and letting it work, you know. And before I go on to the final day, I want to talk a little bit about magical work and a secret that is not really that big of a secret, but I think it's important to note. You know, when you're doing magical work, the way that you're going to be successful is if you expect your work to work. You know, you have to have faith. Now, we may all have our doubts, and, you know, we do from time to time. But prior to doing the work, you've got to clear the doubts out of your mind. You've got to say this work is going to be successful. It's going to work, and I'm going to see it through, and I know it. And it's very, very important to get yourself to that place before you sit down to do the work. Because doubt and fear, when those things creep in, it may slow down the work. It may give you complications. A whole host of things can happen when you are not trusting and believing that the work is going to be successful. And to add to that, I would also say, you know, if you're getting ready to do a working and you don't feel confident about it, or you feel unsure about it, or you don't feel like the time is right, then take a step back and don't do it. There really is no rush. But when you get into work where you're working with candles, or you're working with jars, or you're working with the earth, or, you know, you're working with different elements, you have to trust in your abilities as a magical practitioner. You have to know that it's going to work. That's very important. That's really number one in terms of your work being successful. So I just wanted to share that before we move on to the next photo. So this photo you see here is the last day. This is the last day of the work when the candle burned down, and I was really, really overjoyed because the candle burned down almost completely clear. There was very little wax left. It was just really a beautiful burn. And the reason why a clear burn is so important and so significant is because when a candle burns down clear with very little wax, what that basically means is that your dreams and goals are happening. Basically what it means is that there wasn't really any opposition. You know, if there were bits of wax stuck on this, or, you know, it hadn't totally burned down, that would be a sign that the work wasn't complete. But because it burned all the way down, that lets us know that the work is complete, it's successful, and there really was no opposition. You know, it was onward and upward. So I was excited about that. So I want to talk about two more things, and then I'll go to our final shot of the day. So if you look underneath the candle, you will see what is a piece of paper there with writing on it. And I want to talk a little bit about what that is. Now, for those of you who do candle work on a regular basis, you're very familiar with this, but I know that there are some people that are not and still getting the hang of it. So what you see underneath that candle is actually a petition paper. And what a petition paper is it basically is your wish, your dream, or your goal for what you want to manifest. And you write that down on the piece of paper because that is your prayer. That is your prayer that you send up to the spirit world. So what I was led to write on the paper was the names of the people who lost their lives. And across their names, I wrote crossover, rise in power. Crossover, rise in power. And I wrote it until I couldn't write anymore, because I wanted to match it up with everybody's name. And then at the end of that, I wrote, and do this for the good of all. And do this for the good of all. And that's a little something that I got from a magical practitioner and witch known as Lori Cabot. One of the things she says is whenever you're doing a working, you always want to pray that it's done for the good of all. Because when it's done for the good of all, things tend to balance out. You know, sometimes we may approach work from our place of understanding, but we're not able to see a year down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 100 years down the road. We may not be able to see all angles, but if we pray that something happens for the good of all, we can ensure that things are going to come together in a beautiful way, and it's going to restore balance. So I wrote that, and I put the candle on top of it, and I prayed over it, and then I lit the candle. You know, and I allowed it to do what it needed to do, you know, not a whole lot, you know, in terms of tips and tricks and things going on there, more a sincere prayer and a sincere energy. I will say sometimes what can help with some of these candles, and, you know, I did this for mine. I made the decision to use a couple of powders on this candle. I used rue. And rue is a very good powder for protection. I felt that these souls that crossed over really, really needed protection. So I got a little bit of rue powder and I sprinkled it over the top. And one of the things that I recommend when you're dealing with powders is that you always get your hands into it. You always get your hands into it, because when you are doing that, you're making magic. You're putting holy energy into the spirit of that root plant, and you're connecting your energy with the root plant, and you're connecting that with the spirit world to manifest something beautiful. And I also use dragon's blood. Now, dragon's blood is known, you know, all around for kind of chasing away negative energy or keeping you safe. And so I felt bringing those two together, because rue is also very healing, with the dragon's blood would really help these souls to cross over in a happy way, to cross over in a healthy way. And any opposition that was dragging them down would not be able to do so. So that's what I did. That was my preparation. Now I'm going to look at one of our final candles here, and we're looking inside of the candle now, and we're looking down. Once again, I feel like this burn is a beautiful one. And it's interesting because as I look at it now, I'm seeing even different things that I saw from the day that I lit it and worked on it. So if you'll look at it and you'll notice, you'll see what feels like little specks of black and little specks of green and even little specks of orange shooting away from the wick of the candle. This is a really good sign because it's all scattered away. And what that's basically showing me is that those souls are being released. They're going in their different directions. They're going into the spirit world. But there's something else that I also noticed as well. I'm not certain if you can see this, but what I see also, right down in the center is what looks like a bird. And it looks like three birds, and they're flying away. And this is always a beautiful sign too, because this basically shows that those souls who have passed away, they're flying. They're letting go, they're releasing, they're being carried out. Okay. So the last photo here, once again, you can see it's burned down, pretty clean, but you can see a lot of white. And when you see a lot of white on the candle, there's a white film around it. That's actually a very good sign that the angelic energies have their hand on your work. That the angelic energies are guiding the work, they are healing the work, and they are helping the work along. So kind of across the board, this was a very, very successful candle burn. And, I'm so pleased about it. I'm so excited about it, and I'm so glad that, that I kind of felt the push from Eligua, and I felt the push from the spirit world to get this candle for him, and that's the thing. Sometimes we don't always know why we're led to do something. But if we follow spirit and we do it in the moment, we may have some wonderful and pleasant surprises. So, that is what I have for how to read candles today. I'm actually going to come back with another video very, very soon where we actually talk about when the work is not successful and how to read the not so positive signs, in the candle. But in this particular case, all signs were positive, all systems were a go. So I just wanted to share that. And I just want to give my condolences to those who lost their friends, their family members, their co-workers in this tragedy. But do know that each and every one of those souls had a mission to change the world. And I know that with absolute certainty. I know that with absolute certainty. And they have, maybe not in the way we hoped, but they have changed the world. They have changed our minds. They have shown us that love is love. They have shown us that everyone's life matters. LGBT lives matter. And it's important for us to be who we are. So I thank them for that with profound love and gratitude. I thank God. I thank Eligua. I thank my guys for helping with it because they rock like the bee's knees. And that's what I have for you. So if you would like to connect with me for a reading, you can go to NicoleBowman.biz. I also have a candle ministry where I do candle work for you. And that's about it. Check back for another video soon. Know you are loved. And once again, rise in power. Take care, guys.